Data versus doubt, progress versus politics is the last episode of the series here on BBC Two. It's Big Oil versus the world.
Doing something for the first time, taking advantage of this new resource, you don't always know what you don't know. And over time, what we learned about methane emissions as it relates to natural gas is very, very scary. I think the Obama administration tried to be very conscious of all the implications of the shale revolution. Did it turn out we had it wrong? Absolutely. But at the time, we didn't know that it was wrong, and it's not like we didn't have some of the best scientific minds in the country working on that.
Methane emissions are a very important greenhouse gas that needs to be addressed. It's just that methane emissions from the oil and gas industry are actually a minority of methane emissions. Fortunately, in contrast to carbon dioxide, methane has a relatively short lifetime in the atmosphere. That doesn't mean one should ignore it. It means that one better eliminate new emissions.
The study promoted gas as a bridge fuel to a lower carbon future. It also criticized the Cornell methane report as unsubstantiated. Ernest Moniz insists industry funding did not influence these conclusions.
The point is, we always believe in transparency, and so that's, yeah.
The funding was part of a wider strategy by the fossil fuel industry. By 2012, oil and gas companies were pumping hundreds of millions of dollars into departments at prestigious academic institutions across America.
Would you be happy to talk about generally who funded the MIT Energy Initiative, not necessarily that report?
Let's just end the interview, okay? I mean, if you want to paint that as some kind of black spot, well, go ahead. Ridiculous, totally ridiculous. Look at the output, not the input. So, what? It's very disappointing, to be perfectly honest.
Moniz would become Energy Secretary in Barack Obama's second term, where he helped advocate for the natural gas boom.
For more than 150 years, oil and gas has played a critical role in our society, improving human lives, raising standards of living, and enabling unprecedented economic growth.
Special three-part series, the epic story of our failure to tackle climate change.
The whole world is heating up.
And the role of the fossil fuel industry.
Did Big Oil knowingly spread disinformation?
Now, in the third and final part, Big Oil pivots to a new energy source.
Renewables weren't quite there yet. Natural gas could provide continuous 24-hour generation.
Doing something for the first time, taking advantage of this new resource, you don't always know what you don't know. And over time, what we learned is very, very scary.
And the challenges that have delayed climate action.
We have a supply of natural gas that can last America nearly 100 years.
The United States is now the #1 producer of oil and natural gas.
The global energy crisis exacerbated by Russia's war.
To release 60 million barrels of oil from reserves around the world.
We all want a clean climate, but what we want more than that is to be able to fill up our cars below $4 a gallon. We're still very much in the fossil fuel age.
We continue to maintain a position that has evolved with science and is today consistent with the science.
We won't solve the climate crisis unless we solve the misinformation crisis.
Criticism of the Cornell report also came from another academic institution, MIT's influential Energy Initiative, which had just published its own report promoting natural gas as a bridge to get away from burning coal and a way to reduce CO2 emissions.
Methane emissions are a very important greenhouse gas that needs to be addressed. It's just that methane emissions from the oil and gas industry are actually a minority of methane emissions. There's some very, very tough problems. Agriculture, dairy farms, enormous methane emitters. Fortunately, in contrast to carbon dioxide, methane has a relatively short lifetime in the atmosphere. That doesn't mean one should ignore it. It means that one better eliminate new emissions.
Ernest Moniz led MIT's Future of Natural Gas study, which said the Cornell work was based on unsubstantiated estimates. Moniz would not talk about it in our interview, nor would he answer questions about the funding for the study, other than to say it was transparent.
The point is, we always believe in transparency, and so that's, yeah.
Renewables weren't quite there yet. The nuclear projects were just proving to be too expensive. And natural gas could provide continuous 24-hour generation.
Thank you. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
We became an oil and gas country. It affected our politics, it affected our economy, and it begins to really affect kind of how we look at the world. The United States looks at the world.
The U.S. had become the largest producer of natural gas in the world, helping spark a decline in CO2 emissions, even as studies were piling up showing a dangerous rise in methane emissions.
Doing something for the first time, taking advantage of this new resource, you don't always know what you don't know. And over time, what we learned about methane emissions as it relates to natural gas is very, very scary.
Heather Zichal would go on to advise the natural gas industry, then lobby for renewables.
I think the Obama administration tried to be very conscious of everything, all the implications of the shale revolution. But at the time, I think early Obama administration years, we didn't have access to the kinds of information that we would have liked to and needed to have had to take the proper regulatory steps to ensure as safe and climate-friendly production as possible.
At MIT, Ernest Moniz says they've also learned a lot since their early research.
Were you aware how large the methane leaks could be or would be when producing natural gas?
No, I think it's come much more into focus recently. We were concerned about leaks, but I think the quantitative scale of the issue has become more clear in recent years with better measurement devices, including atmospheric measurements, which are now becoming much more commonplace.
Moniz would become Energy Secretary in Barack Obama's second term, where he helped advocate for the natural gas boom.